recording.
Okay. So last time we finished. So last time we talked about reconstruction theorem, and in fact we stated the theorem. So there is correspondence between finite ring category. So it's here. Wow, what happened? Where is it? Here. So finite ring category. Here. Finite ring category with fiber functor correspond to finite dimensional bialgebra. So we were able to to make the. You start from, for example, finite ring category with fiber functor. You can make an algebra structure on the end of F, and then a coalgebra structure, define co-multiplication and co-unit, etc. So we did that last time. Now we are interested in. So what about we want to reach Hopf algebra, and to reach Hopf algebra we need the antipode. So now we will state a result, same reconstruction result for Hopf algebra, and for so we will need more than just a finite ring category. We will need tensor category, in fact. So okay, so Hopf algebra. Reconstruction theorem. So as I said, in this section, we will see that regarding to reconstruction theorem, the difference between bialgebra and Hopf algebra, which means the existence of an invertible antipode, is the same as the difference between finite ring category and finite tensor category. And we will also mention without finite later, so infinite settings. So it's much easier to formulate and to prove the finite case, but you also have such a reconstruction theorem for infinite category. Okay. So for yeah. So here here's the difference. So yeah, let me check. At the algebra structure level. The difference is given by an invertible antipode at the categorical level. The difference is given by rigid structure. Rigid structure. Okay. So in this section, what I want to say that we will state a lot of results. We will mention a list of results, but without proof, because most of the proof are in fact from algebra, from algebra setting, and in fact this course is about tensor category. And in fact, many of the proof in the algebra setting we will be able to get a categorical reformulation of the proof. So in this section, we will mention a list of results without proof. So if you are really interested in the proof, you can go to the book on section 5.3 details. As I said, most of the results can be proved directly at the categorical level using the appropriate reconstruction theorem. Okay, so okay, so now so what time is it? Okay. So consider. So we will take the bialgebra end of F as above. And we will assume that the ring category C has left dual. So it's not yet rigid, which means left and right duals, but just left dual. Just the left dual will be enough to get an antipode, but not an invertible antipode. So then we can define a linear map S from H to H as follows. So you have the linear map. So this linear map, what is? So A is a natural transformation from F to F, S of A. So S of A is completely characterized by the sequence of morphism SAX. And in fact, it is defined as follows. You consider AX star, the morphism AX star, and then you take the star of this morphism. And here, where we assume like that. It's a kind of convention. You assume it's a convention. It's not an additional structure, it's just a convention. You can always assume that without losing generality. So without loss of generality. Okay, so we have this. We have a candidate for being an antipode of the bialgebra H. So what is an antipode? So the following proposition will say that this linear lap satisfies the antipode axiom. Yeah. An antipode will be a linear map satisfying the antipode axiom, so satisfying the property that this S we choose satisfies. So let mu from H tensor H to H, the multiplication structure, and I from K to the unit map, so B, the multiplication and unit map. Okay, then so here is the antipode axiom. So you apply mu, so ID tensor S co-multiplication is equal to I composed with the co-unit, which is equal to mu composed with S tensor ID. So what? So this is a map. So they are mapped as maps from H to H. So you start from H. You apply the co-multiplication. So now you have a sum of tensor product of element of H. On the first component, you make identity. On the second component, you make the antipode. And remember that the antipode is a generalization of inverse. And then you apply the multiplication map. And you exactly, so this saying that in some sense, this axiom generalized the axiom for for a group that's the inverse axiom in group. This is the of algebra generalization of inverse. So this you have on the left and on the right. Okay, and so what we define as an antipode is such a linear map satisfying this property. It's a linear map satisfying this property. So an antipode on a bialgebra H is a linear map from H to H satisfying above equalities. Above equalities. So in fact, as I said, I will not provide the proof. So I regret a bit to do not provide. I did not prepare the proof for this proposition because the proof of this proposition is in the category framework. In fact, he uses the notion of evaluation and co-evaluation map. So I did not prepare this proof, so I cannot provide the proof, but this was in fact the only proof of this section which was in the categorical framework. So I regret a bit to not prepare this proof. All the other proofs are in the Hopf algebra or algebraic framework, and most of them can be reproved in the categorical framework using some reconstruction theorem. So no regret for the other, but only for this one. Anyway, now, in fact, here is the first proposition which can be proved in the categorical framework, but was proved in the algebraic framework in the book. In fact, we have the notion, we said that when, if you remember, we proved something in the past, if a left dual exists, then it is unique up to some unique isomorphism. But in fact, you have the same, the analogous proposition for bialgebra. If an antipode exists, then it is unique. And so this can be proved by some reconstruction theorem, but it was proved historically it was proved in the bialgebra framework. But so the following proposition is the linear algebra. When I say linear algebra, which means bialgebra framework analog of the proposition saying that about the uniqueness of left dual when it exists up to unique isomorphism. So we have this uniqueness of left dual when it exists. So as I said, it can be proved using the linear algebra analogous. I will state just the uniqueness of antipode when it exists can be proved using a reconstruction theorem. So we will see the finite dimensional case soon. and the infinite case a bit later. Maybe today, but I don't think so. Maybe next time. So this proposition, as I said, is the following. The uniqueness of antipode when it exists. An antipode on a bialgebra H is unique if it exists. Here, up to now, so we define H from a finite ring category. But here, the proposition, we don't assume H to be finite dimensional. So in the finite dimensional case, this will be, this comes from reconstruction theorem we will state now. But it's also true for the infinite dimensional case using infinite dimensional reconstruction theorem. Okay. So what I wanted to say, but here it's not assumed finite dimensional. It's true in general. Okay. And the book provides a proof of that in the bialgebra framework. So next, what about next? If it is yeah, so the next proposition is just saying that the antipode is an anti-homorphism. So it commutes S of AB is equal to S of B times S of A. So proposition. So let S be an antipode on a bialgebra H, then S is an anti-homorphism of algebra, which means S of AB is equal to S of B, S of A. And you have this analogous statement, idem of coalgebra. Algebra. And I guess, so idem, this was proved in the algebraic framework, but I guess this is the same thing. I guess it corresponds to X tensor Y star is equal to isomorphic to X star tensor Y star. I guess through reconstruction theorem, this is equivalent. This reduced to this result on the ring category. Okay, so now now the converse. Now we will take the converse. If you start from a bialgebra with an antipode, and you consider the category, the ring category of representation of this bialgebra, then it will have left dual. And we will we will provide the definition of this left dual in the as a representation of H. So conversely, now conversely, corollary, so there are two steps. One step is for antipode, and the other step, the antipode left dual, the other step, invertible antipode, rigid. So first, so I don't want to write conversely. Get a bit more space. Okay. So first, antipode correspond to left dual. So if H is a bialgebra with an antipode, so this is a converse to, where is it? To that. You can define a linear map. So if I call that this proposition, so it's a converse to that. This corollary is a converse of proposition antipode action. Okay. So H is a bialgebra with an antipode S. Then you take C to be the category, the ring category of representation of H as it has left dual. So maybe it's an exercise to show that this is a ring category. So which means that for all x in C, so we will how the bialgebra will act on this left dual. So X object of C are representation, so vector space. So the left on which X H act, the left dual X star is as a vector space the usual dual space of X, but we need the action with action of H as follow. So the action, so you take, let an element in H, the action this is represented as follow. So you take the representation of X and you apply it to the antipode applied to A, and then you take the adjoint, matrix adjoint. So now we are in a matrix adjoint. Matrix adjoint. Okay. And so we have the usual dual space as a dual. And what about the evaluation and co-evaluation map? You have the usual evaluation and co-evaluation map of the okay. So the action of H on H, not of H, the action on X. I was confused. The action on X, H. It's not the algebra who act. This is the action of the space on H. That's why I was confused a bit. So action of on H. So any element of H is represented as a matrix, as a linear map. Okay. So this is for bialgebra with antipode. Now, what about if, in addition, the antipode is invertible? Then we will have left dual, but also right dual. So it's rigid. So the ring category is in fact a tensor category. Then C has also right dual, which means that it is rigid, which means that C is a tensor category. So very important, tensor category. So we need the action of the right dual on H. So for all X in C, the right dual star X is the usual idem. You just take the dual space, usual dual space of X with action on H as follow. So the right dual act of H act on H. So let H like that. So you take the usual action, but you take not the antipode, but the inverse of the antipode. You assume it is invertible. And then you take the star. So this is a way to get the action on the right dual. And similarly, idem, and you have the usual co-evaluation maps of VEC. Okay. So remark. So you have same idem for H commod instead of rep H. So you have two categories, in fact. From a bialgebra, you have the category of representation and the category of co-representation of co-module, in fact. So it's not very notation is not very, the usual notation is not that good in the sense that representation mean H module. So you can say H mod, H commod, or co-representation. I don't know. They choose to write H commod for co-representation and rep of H for representation. Anyway, it's not just a notation. Okay. So so we saw yeah. So the second point is about invertible antipode, and that is the what make a bialgebra and off algebra, to have an antipode but which is also invertible. Okay, so definition. The bialgebra with an invertible antipode is called Hopf algebra. Hopf algebra. Invertible antipode. And so we have the reconstruction theorem I mentioned for Hopf algebra. Reconstruction theorem. So the second reconstruction theorem. Now for Hopf algebra. So the assignment. What I mean? So almost paused. The assignment. So CF maps to H. So bialgebra H of end of F. C ring category. I will write the details. And the other way, H rep of H, forget. And in fact, we talk about co-module because in this reconstruction theorem is in the finite case, but in the infinite case, we cannot write rep of H, but we need the co-module. That's why we mention co-module. The reconstruction theorem in the infinite case, it's not with rep of H, but H commod. Not the representation, but the co-representation. So, but we are in the finite case here. So that these assignments are mutually inverse bijection between so the first is equivalent classes of finite tensor category C with a fiber functor F up to equivalence, etc. Up to equivalence as before. So what we wrote before, so I don't want to write it there. Always the same. Where is it? This thing here. We wrote here up to tensor equivalence and isomorphism of tensor functor. So we will have to write that every time of every reconstruction theorem. So it's always the same. So up to as before, etc. And two, so first you have the finite tensor category and isomorphism classes of finite dimensional Hopf algebra over the field K. So what is important here is finite tensor category with fiber functor. So I should maybe write fiber tensor category fiber functor correspond to finite dimensional of algebra. Okay. So we'll take the pause. So pause. Okay. So, so this is a reconstruction theorem for Hopf algebra, finite dimensional Hopf algebra. We will state later the infinite dimensional setting, but before I want to mention some a remark of my, which is not in the book. Not in the book. We should. So when I say it should, in fact, it should be. It is proved somewhere, but I did not look for the reference. It should have such a reconstruction theorem for unitary fusion category. So if you say unitary, it's over the complex with fiber functor F, maybe maybe with a star structure, I don't know. And maybe this needs some detail. Finite dimensional Hopf C star algebra. Star algebra. Star algebra over C. So finite dimensional star algebra, it's sometimes called, so it's sometime called Katz algebra. Katz algebra. But sometimes Katz algebra refer only to algebra coming from group or deformation of group. But that's not true. That's not the notation we use here. We use Katz algebra for Hopf-Sister algebra or finite dimensional Hopf-Sister algebra. In fact, you can have also infinite dimensional Katz algebra. But here, Katz algebra for finite dimensional Hopf-Star algebra over the complex. Okay. So maybe the functor should have some unitary structure. I don't know. Something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, so you know that you see the idea. The previous reconstruction theorem, you have finite tensor category, finite dimension of algebra. In fact, if you are interested in fusion category, or in particular unitary fusion category over the complex, which is the object appearing in physics, for example, you have also a correspondence with finite dimension of star algebra. So unitary fusion category with a fiber functor. And in fact, this comes from my own understanding, because I come from subfactor theory. And also, you have a reconstruction theorem with what is called depth to irreducible subfactor planar algebra. So for people who follow my course, I give not the last semester, but semester before that, I introduce what is a subfactor planar algebra. You can go on YouTube, it's available over C. There is a playlist on YouTube called Quantum Symmetry and Quantum Arithmetic, where I define what is a subfactor planar algebra, etc. And in fact, it is known that depth to irreducible subfactor planar algebra correspond to finite dimensional. That's a finite index also. I should put finite index plus finite index correspond to finite dimensional of star algebra. And you have also the infinite setting. You don't put finite index, and you have of sister algebra. Maybe you need some additional topological assumption. Anyway, so that's enough for this digression. What color I should put for that? Okay, so now we have another Hopf algebra analog of something we proved for category. And this is, we prove that a finite ring category with left dual, in fact, is a tensor category. So if you have a ring category with left dual, if you assume it to be finite, then they also have right duals. So this was proved in some previous course, in some previous session. And this corresponds to, if you have a finite dimensional bialgebra with antipode, then the antipode is invertible. So then you have Hopf algebra. And this can be proved immediately from the reconstruction theorem. So now, as I said, linear algebra analog analog of the theorem a finite ring category C with left duals is a tensor category. Okay, which means that it also has right duals. Okay, so what is the analog is the following, as I said. If H is a finite dimensional, and here finite dimensional is important, by algebra with antipode S, then S is invertible. Invertible. So H is Hopf algebra. And this is not true. So contrary to the previous proposition, previous proposition was true for infinite dimensional case, but here it's not true. You have infinite dimensional by algebra with antipode without being invertible. So proof. By reconstruction theorem. And I mentioned that the book provides also algebraic. The book provides an algebraic proof, linear algebraic. So I don't go into the details. So before going to the infinite dimensional case, which will require to recall the notion of projective and inductive limit, let us provide some notation which may be used later. Notation. And here I just rewrite some comment given by Ulrich Thiel, comment about the book of Ulrich Thiel. He provided this summary of all the Hopf algebra you can make from a given Hopf algebra H. You can have the opposite of algebra, the co-opposite of algebra, the opposite and co-opposite of algebra, the dual of algebra, etc. So because we may need this notation later, I will just list that here. And the exercise will be to prove that every such object are in fact Hopf algebra. So I will go very quickly. Let H mu I delta epsilon S. So multiplication, unit map, co-multiplication, co-unit, and antipode. Be Hopf algebra. over a field K, the following are again of algebra. So we have 4 okay, so H up is, so you have H, but the opposite of the multiplication, same I, same delta, same epsilon, and the inverse of the opposite. You have the co-opposite H cop. So you keep H mu I. You take the opposite of the co-multiplication, keep epsilon, you take the inverse of the antipode. And you have H up cop, which is, so as you can expect, up I delta up epsilon. So the inverse of the inverse, so it's just S in itself. And you have the dual of algebra. So dual algebra, multiplication is the dual of the co-multiplication. Unit is the dual of the co-unit. Co-multiplication is the dual of the multiplication. Co-unit is dual of unit. And antipode is dual of the antipode. And here we need, this is well defined only if H is finite dimensional. The last one only, not the other. The other are defined even if H is not finite dimensional. Okay. Where? So you have H up of A tensor B is the mu up of A tensor B is mu of B tensor A. So you take the opposite. And you have the opposite of also the co-multiplication. So if delta A is sum of A, sum over I, AI1 tensor AI2, then delta up of A is sum AI2 tensor AI1. So just the opposite, such that then you have so mu composed with delta is mu up composed with delta up, if I am not mistaken. Because you, yeah, should be okay. Okay. And the last exercise before going to the infinite setting is about the tensor product of algebra. So exercise. So let HR mu R I R delta R epsilon R S R with R equal 1 to B2 of algebra. The exercise is to find the Hop, algebra structure on H1 tensor H2. And by finding the Hopf algebra structure, I mean, so mu equal what, I equal what, etc. Find mu I delta epsilon s. Okay, so find the formula for that. Formula for that in function of the previous. Okay. So now, what about, as I said, the reconstruction theory in the infinite dimensional case? So that will be very brief, not so brief because we will have to recall the notion of projective and inductive limit. But this will be very brief on the proof. So now, reconstruction theory in the infinite setting. So I guess we will not be able to finish this section today, but doesn't matter, we will finish next time. So as I said already, here I will provide a bit of summary before the definition of projective limit. We will need to use co-end, some co-end of f, and in fact co-module instead of end f and and h commod instead of rep of h, because I guess, in fact, that don't explain too much in the book, but I guess it's explained in some other reference paper. Because I guess the antipode if C has left duals, then co-end. So co-end is some dual notion of end. We will define using. We'll need that. For that, we'll need the notion of inductive limit. So you can understand that as a dual notion of end f. So as left, then co-end f has antipode, but not end f in general. So my guess is that it's about antipode. So in that sense, H commod and co-end are in fact the most natural object because this is what you need for infinite dimensional case. In the finite dimensional case, you can also use that, but it's easier to use representation and end of f. Anyway, so let C be a ring category over the field K. C is not assumed finite. Is not assumed finite. So, so let F be a fiber functor. What? Yeah, okay. So we will need to redefine the bi-algebra, the set, which is an bi-algebra, and F as a set. We will see the bi-algebra structure later. The set and F. So as an inverse limit so and F. So it's relevant to recall so of natural transform. I will write like that. Oh, of natural transformation phi given by series phi x C plus commuting diagram, etc. So this and F can be seen as, so you see, it's given by this phi x, x in C. And in fact, you can provide a more a shorter way to define and F using some tool coming from category as an inverse limit. So we will define just now, if I have enough time, limit inverse and F, like that. Yeah, okay. So it's also called projective limit. That we will recall. We will recall it soon. bit today. Then the dual notion lim with an arrow on the other way denoted direct limit or inductive limit will be used to define cohand. Will be used to define cohand f as the inductive limit of and fx dual. Okay, so what about the idea of idea about so idea about projective limit and inductive limit. So the projective limit provide a subset of a product whereas lim inductive limit provide a quotient of a coproduct. Here is disjoint because disjoint union in set. So if you are in a category, if the objects are set, the coproduct corresponds to disjoint union. In fact, the fiber functor, so go to category VEC. So VEC is a category, the objects are set. Vector space over set. Okay. So for the last 15 minutes, I will start to define the notion of projective limit. So projective limit. Projective limit. So let CD be two locally small categories. Maybe abelian category. I don't know if you need locally small abelian category. Abelian category. Not sure we need abelian. And you consider G functor from C to D, some functor so the object of the category C will be denoted by the letter I, because this will correspond to some this is kind of index category. So functor functor, some functor. So the object of C will be denoted by I for X. The object of D will be denoted by Xi. For G of I, je préfère. Okay. And morphism element of the Hom set will be denoted iota ij. Element of the offset Hom D xi ij will be denoted Fij. So maybe a faithful functor, yeah. Faithful functor. So maybe you need faithful, you need, I don't know if you say faithful or fully faithful. I don't remember the exact. Anyway. Okay. And as Fij equal G of iota ij. Okay. And so you have, so this functor, the object I go to the object Xi, and the morphism iota ij from I to J go to the morphism from Xi to Xj Fij. So you can ask yourself why you are using this kind of notation ij, iota ij. This is not the usual notation. In fact, this will be convenient for the definition of the projective limit. The warning about notation. About notation for our need. C is ring category with fiber functor F. D is set or vec or the category of matrix. And the functor G will be and the functor and F and because I wrote matrix because and f of x is a matrix algebra. So the category of matrix algebra. Yeah. So not the same notation in our need. So in the ring category, we will X denotes an object of C, but here an object of C will be denoted for the definition of projective. This will be denoted at I. So just a warning to be does not matter. Okay. So first assume D to be set. So it's a general setting, but we take B set. So I have no time to write. I will come back to that later, but I just want to write the first definition. I will come back to that in more details. So then, so inductive. So lim xi like that will be, so xi are element of sets or are set. So it is a subset of the sequence of element in xi. And here I is in C. So it's a, yeah, it's a big object. Such that for all Fij as above, Fij of xi is equal to xj. So now the small x are elements of a set. So this is included in this big product. Offset. So it remains 5 minutes. What can I say? So this is the object for set, but in fact, it can be defined. So it can be redefined by the following universal property. If you are not comfortable with that, in fact, a product over all the objects of a category. Yeah, I don't know. So the universal property is the following. So for all objects in D, there exists a unique morphism phi from Y, unique morphism phi. I will draw the picture. Such that for all I in C, for all phi I, and for all, I will draw the picture, so don't worry. For all morphism phi I and for all morphism Fij, there exists projection phi I such that phi I such that the diagram commute. The following diagram commute. So what is this diagram? So you have y for all y. You have xi, xj. For all morphism phi I, phi j, there exists a map phi and you have projection phi pi, pj. Like that. So this is a universal, so it commutes, and this is the universal way to define this object. In other words, we have lim of d of y, so I will stop by that, is equivalent to d of y lim xi. So if you define this as above, you define this as above, so with this formula, because this is a locally small category, so this is a set, then you can get that with this equivalence. So the previous formula here is when D is a set, but in this formula, we don't need here by this definition, D may, can be not a set, but we need so yeah, we will see later. See you later. We will see later more details about that, because now it's time. I have to stop here. I have to stop here. So I will stop here.